Good day to you, and welcome to Fascinating. I'm your host, Rick, from planet Vulcan. My ongoing mission on planet Earth to search for signs of intelligence and to encourage its spread. We Vulcans have noticed a curious tendency among Earthlings when it comes to debate and discussion. Vulcans conduct debates with the aim of improving our mutual understanding of something. Looking at something from multiple points of view can provide edification to all the debate participants. This type of debating is rare on planet Earth. Earthlings seem to conduct most debates with the aim of defeating an opponent, either because they just enjoy a feeling of triumph or to advance some self-serving agenda. We observe debating tactics among Earthlings that are more often than not aimed at obfuscation, misdirection, and distraction. One frequently used tactic is the straw man argument. For a fascinating look at this phenomenon, contributing editor Slancha Nazdrovia has written an essay about a particular example of a straw man argument. Slancha writes, "Does the American Social Security system have a trust fund? The federal government takes pains to assure the populace that there is a trust fund, apparently in the belief that we all need to be convinced that benefits will continue to be paid come hell or high water, and it should help to inspire such confidence if we believe that there is a reserve fund the system can dip into when needed. Nominally, there is a trust fund. Until recently, the Social Security system has always collected more in taxes than it has paid in benefits, with the surplus supposedly going into a so-called lockbox where it cannot legally be touched after it is locked away. But something happens to the funds before they get to the lockbox, and what happens is the key to understanding what the trust fund actually is. And what happens before the lockbox is locked is that the surplus is touched. The Treasury spends all of the excess Social Security contributions as part of the federal budget, and instead puts into the lockbox Treasury securities, bills, notes, and bonds, which are essentially IOUs and which memorialize that the Treasury has retained the funds and now owes it to the system. This practice is exactly analogous to one of Milo Minderbinder's schemes in Joseph Heller's novel Catch-22. If you haven't read Catch-22, Milo was a wheeler-dealer in the Army Air Corps in World War II. One of his many deals involved removing the morphine from all the medical kits on the bombers and replacing the morphine with IOUs. Captain Yossarian, a bombardier on one of the B-25 bombers, discovers this ruse when his crewmate, Lieutenant Snowden, is injured by flak during a bombing raid, and Yossarian tries to treat him. The practical consequence of this chicanery for poor Lieutenant Snowden is obvious. What is the practical consequence of this chicanery in the Social Security system? The practical consequence is that there is no trust fund in any substantive sense, any more than there was morphine in Yossarian's medical kit. The Treasury IOUs cannot be used to pay benefits any more than Milo's IOUs could be used to treat pain. So now you should be saying that the Social Security Trust Fund is nothing but smoke and mirrors. And to further help you understand why, I suggest you imagine what would be different between having such a trust fund and not having such a trust fund whenever outlays exceed contributions. Outlays have exceeded contributions since 2010, and it is projected to continue like that for the foreseeable future. So, when outlays exceed revenues, what must happen if there is a trust fund? And what must happen if there is no such trust fund? The answer is that exactly the same thing must happen whether or not there is a trust fund containing nothing but Treasury IOUs. In either case, the Treasury must raise new funds to pay the benefits, either from a tax levy or from borrowing. Defenders of the trust fund arrangement don't appear to be deterred when you demonstrate to them that the trust fund is nothing more than an illusion. They want to continue using the arrangement to reassure those who might be worried about whether their benefits are secure. And since the tactic of obfuscation is becoming less and less effective as more and more people understand the true nature of the arrangement, the defenders are piling on with the misdirection and distraction tactics. Instead of replying to the argument which illustrates the illusory nature of the fund, they are now pretending to reply to a straw man who is arguing that the Treasury securities held by the trust fund are not safe investments, hoping we will not notice the misdirection. But nobody is arguing that Treasury securities are not safe investments. The default risk is virtually zero, since the Treasury will always have the ability to give some paper called Federal Reserve notes, which the Fed can create at will out of thin air, in exchange for the paper called Treasury securities. But the quality of the securities is, of course, entirely irrelevant to the discussion. What is relevant is that these securities represent obligations of one department of the Treasury to make payments to another department of the Treasury. The value of the trust fund assets is exactly equal to the value of the associated liabilities, so the net value is zero, whatever the default risk might be. You might now be wondering, if there is no trust fund, what is it that makes the continued payment of Social Security benefits possible? At least one writer has suggested that the continued viability of the system will never be in question simply because the people will continue to vote for it. I'm not making this up. This argument, of course, ignores what might happen if the wherewithal to pay the benefits simply does not exist. You do not have to look far for examples of countries where people have voted overwhelmingly to receive old age benefits, but they do not receive all the benefits they vote for because the obligation exceeds the available resources. Do you honestly believe that such a thing could never happen here? Incidentally, since we are on the subject of the Social Security system, the trust fund is not the only feature that has been sold to a trusting public by means of mischaracterization. Do you believe that what you pay into the system is an insurance contribution, which is the official line? Actually, it's a tax, and all that you contribute is immediately spent. Do you believe that the tax you pay into the system will eventually come back to you in the form of benefits? Actually, your benefits can only come from future tax revenues, levied on people who will be working at the time. Do you believe that you have a right to receive a benefit just because you have paid into the system? That is, some sort of property right. Actually, you have no such right. Benefits are legally deemed to be statutory grants. But grants can be rescinded even under current statutes and court decisions, and statutes can be modified or even repealed. We need to be clear-eyed about these things and perhaps a little more skeptical. Promises that seem too good to be true usually aren't. Thanks to Slancha for this informative essay. I invite you to have a look at the next essay on the fascinating YouTube channel. Please provide feedback to these essays. If you are so inclined, you may contact me by sending an email to Senior Contributing Editor Prego Denada, pregodenada@gmail.com. Thanks to Tract Tribe for permitting the use of their song, Helium. Live long and prosper. Savor your experiences and treasure your memories, and respect nature's wisdom.